Hi everyone, this is Cesar reporting. From Enquirer.net, a third impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte was filed on Monday. The same groups that filed one of the complaints against the former president's daughter in December 2024 that was voided by the Supreme Court last year. On February 2, members of the Makabayan Coalition filed the first petition for the second set of impeachment complaints against Duterte, with a complaint centering on her alleged gross abuse of discretionary powers over 612.5 million pesos in confidential funds, and her fabrication of liquidation reports and documents. Hours later, members of civil society organizations filed another complaint against the vice president. Sara Duterte said last Saturday that the impeachment complaint against her by Akbayan was a politically motivated harassment, accusing the party list group's most prominent leader in Congress, Senator Risa Hontiveros, of using it to advance her ambition to run for president in 2028.
Of public trusts, plunder, malversation, graft and corruption, bribery, and other high crimes, to the tune of 612,500,000 pesos.
Kikita nyo naman po na yung mga complainants ng second and the third complainants and even of the first complainants, they are private citizens, they are members of clergy, they are members of organizations, and they have been into this, into their cause, into their campaign for accountability of highest officials of this country, and including the vice president. So yung kanilang motivation is not at all political. Sabi nga ni Father Sarabia, may halo din po itong moral, because it's the moral obligation of everyone, the moral obligation of the members of Congress, members of the House of Representatives, to do its constitutional duty to scrutinize the allegations, evaluate the evidence, and make a finding of probable cause para nga po makonsider na rin ng at least one-third of the House members na magkaroon na ng isa pa ulit ng articles, pag-adopt ng articles of impeachment na itatransmit sa Senado for trial.
From Enquirer.net, Iligan City, Lanao del Norte, Philippines, 3 days after Tropical Depression Bashang, or international name Penha, battered the city. The residents and local authorities continue a massive cleanup as mud and debris block the streets and paralyze daily life. Efforts focus on the Tubud Bridge, a critical access point, which reopened last Saturday, but was temporarily closed on Sunday night to allow workers to clear mud and make approaches safe. The Department of Public Works and Highways personnel, local government workers, volunteers, and fire crews worked overtime using trucks and hoses to flush debris from the roads. And the city streets remained littered with fallen trees, uprooted shrubs, garbage, and household items swept away by the floods. Many businesses were still closed, and the usual morning rush was absent as families tackled cleanup in their neighborhoods. Authorities are calling for support from neighboring provinces. Misamis Occidental sent food packs and heavy equipment, while Cagayan de Oro appealed for the Catholic faithful to extend aid to affected communities. The Department of the Interior and local government urged local governments across northern Mindanao to assist Iligan in the ongoing recovery, noticing the scale of the cleanup effort. And from rioters, a Palestinian woman who lost dozens of family members in the Gaza war has been hospitalized following a seizure in the U.S. immigration detention, the Department of Homeland Security said on Monday. On February 6, 2026, at about 8:45 p.m., medical staff at the detention center in Alvarado, Texas, notified ICE that detainee Lika Cordia was admitted to Texas Health in Burleson, Texas, for further evaluation following a seizure, a DAH spokesperson said. Cordia, a 33 years old Muslim Palestinian woman living in the U.S. and whose mother is an American citizen, was detained by U.S. immigration authorities early last year. At the time of her detention last year, Cordia was in the process of securing legal residency. And her family and legal team said they have not received communication from the U.S. authorities about her health.
Ask you about the case of Sister Laka Cordia, who languishes in a prison after nearly a year, I think. She's the last of the Columbia University demonstrators, Palestinian. How can it be that this young lady remains in incarceration?
This is one of many cases that defy anything legal in America. You know, Mahmoud Khalil, Rumaysa, Öztürk. In a sense, of course, hers is a little bit more outrageous because she's still lingering in prison and detention. The government, the US government, the Trump administration knows, and it is currently in violation of many rulings by various US courts because there's no way to enforce these decisions for the time being. Now, obviously, the biggest challenge nowadays is Palestinians are at the lowest in terms of sympathy level in America today. So that's why the government can get away with punishing people for their free speech, not any criminal behavior.
And from Al Jazeera, U.S. urged American ships to stay as far as possible from Iranian waters. The United States has issued new guidelines to U.S. flagships traveling through the Strait of Hormuz, calling on them to stay away from Iranians' territorial waters amid tensions between Washington and Tehran. The advisory released by the U.S. Maritime Administration on Monday also urged the captains of American ships against granting Iranian forces permission to board U.S. vessels. Global shipping lanes and commercial vessels have historically been threatened by geopolitical turmoil, especially in the Middle East. During the Iran-Iraq conflict in the 1980s, both countries targeted merchant ships in what became known as the Tanker War. The U.S. government describes Hormuz as the world's most important oil choke point due to its strategic location as the maritime entryway into the energy-producing region. Late in January, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, conducted naval military exercises in the strait, prompting the U.S. military to warn Tehran against any unsafe and unprofessional behavior. The U.S. military later said that it shot down an Iranian drone that approached one of its aircraft carriers in the area. Washington has also previously seized Iranian oil tankers as part of its maximum pressure campaign of sanctions against Iran. In 2019, the United Arab Emirates reported what it described as sabotage attacks against 4 ships in territorial waters in the Gulf of Oman. But there have been no recent public threats by Iran or any other party to vessels in and around the Gulf. The U.S. has been amassing military assets in the region, with U.S. President Donald Trump regularly threatening renewed strikes against Iran. In December, Trump said Washington would attack Iran if the country pushes to rebuild its nuclear and missile programs. U.S. forces had bombed Iran's 3 main nuclear facilities during the June 2025 war, which was started by Israel amid ongoing talks between Tehran and Washington at that time. Iranian officials have said that current negotiations are exclusively nuclear, but the Trump administration has suggested that it also wants to address Iran's missiles arsenal and Tehran's support for non-state actors in the region, like Hezbollah and Hamas. On the nuclear front, a major sticking point in the past negotiation has been whether Iran, which denies seeking a nuclear weapon, would be allowed to enrich uranium domestically. Tehran insists that uranium enrichment is a sovereign right that does not violate its commitments under the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, or NPT.
Iran's nuclear capacity in Operation Midnight Hammer. You saw that. People have been waiting for 22 years to do that, and we were right at the end. They were about a month away from having a nuclear weapon. We had to do it. And by the way, there's another beautiful armada floating beautifully toward Iran right now. So we'll see. I hope they make a deal. I hope they make a deal. They should have made a deal the first time they'd have a country.
From Al Jazeera, pressure grows on UK Prime Minister Starmer as Scottish Labour leader urged him to quit. The United Kingdom Prime Minister Keir Starmer is facing more pressure to resign as the leader of the Scottish Labour Party has urged him to quit over the fallout from the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. Labour's leader in Scotland, Anna Sarwar, said on Monday the distraction needs to end and the leadership in Downing Street has to change.
One that is too important to be missed. We cannot allow the failures at the heart of Downing Street to mean the failures continue here in Scotland. Because the election in May is not without consequence for the lives of Scots. We have an NHS crisis where too many Scots can't access the treatment they need and when they need it. We have a housing emergency with more than 10,000 Scottish children homeless right now. And we have too many young people not feeling safe at school or on our streets or missing out on the opportunities they deserve. And we have an SNP government that is addicted to secrecy and cover-ups with devastating consequences. That's why I have to be honest about failure wherever I see it. The situation in Downing Street is not good enough. There have been too many mistakes. They promised they were going to be different, but too much has happened. Have there been good things? Of course there have, many of them, but no one knows them and no one can hear them because they're being drowned out. That's why it cannot continue. I am proud to have played my part in removing a Tory government that was doing so much damage to Scotland. And having a Labour government matters. I am proud of my Scottish Labour MPs who did the hard work, persuaded our fellow Scots, ran a historic and successful campaign, and who have spent every day since fighting for Scotland's interests. I'm proud of these Scottish Labour ministers serving at every level of government, delivering for Scotland. I want them to stay in government, because I said right at the start that my first priority and my first loyalty is to my country, Scotland. That's why they must continue to defend and protect Scotland's interests.
Back because of a system that doesn't work for them, who are not given the dignity, the respect, the chance that they deserve. And I'm fighting for them. I am their Prime Minister, and this is their government. And I will never give up on that fight. There are some people in recent days who say the Labour government should have a different fight, a fight with itself, instead of a fight for the millions of people who need us to fight for them. And I say to them, I will never walk away from the mandate I was given to change this country. I will never walk away from the people that I am charged with fighting for. And I will never walk away from the country that I love. And that is the country who I truly believe we are, a compassionate, reasonable, live and let live country, a diverse country, where given half the chance, we'll help each other out. That is who we are as a country, and I want to serve every single part of that country. The country that I love. But the fight coming up in politics, the real fight, is not in the Labour Party. It's with the right-wing politics that challenges that. The politics of reform. The politics of divide, divide, divide. Grievance, grievance, grievance. That will tear our country apart. That is the fight that we are in. And I will be in that fight as long as I have breath in my body. Millions of people